Hey, I'm Barry from Barry's Auto Body. Today we're going to show you our state-of-the-art wheel alignment machine. It's a Snap-on V3400. It's a laser alignment machine that does measure. It measures all four wheels, it measures the suspension, and it measures the underneath the subframe of the vehicle, also in the front and the rear. So come inside and come check our wheel alignment machine out. All right, so now we're inside the shop. So this is a scissor lift by John Beam. It's a Snap-on scissor lift, USAA made. I would only use a USAA made lift. It's not, some off-brand or anything like that. I would never use anything like that in my shop. It's a Snap-on lift. It was made here in the USA, and it's a scissor lift. Part of the reason why we use this is because it does have the turntables on the front of the lift. Jay, will you just go a little higher? But it does have the turntables on the front of the lift. This way, while we're doing wheel alignment, we can turn the wheel from side to side, and you do need that when you're doing a wheel alignment. You need to be able to turn the wheel from side to side as you're making the adjustments. It's perfect. You see how the lift, when it goes back down? I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but you do have right here, there's actually locks that you can see on the side, and you can hear the lift when it's going up and down. You can hear it kind of clicking in. Now we're going to bring it back down. All right, so now the lift is into the locks and everything is set. So we know that the car, if we did have to go underneath, we can go underneath the car. Right now, at this point, we won't be going under the car, but when we're going to start doing adjustments, we're going to raise it up again and we will have to go under the car. But every time that the car is level, you want to make sure that the lift is locked in. You don't want to be going underneath the car or really even leaving the car up there when it's not locked in. Over here, you can see this is one of the towers, goes to the wheel alignment machine. It's a V3400 Snap-on wheel alignment machine. I've looked at many on the market. I picked this wheel alignment machine when it was about 2 years ago. I went to the Northeast Trade Show, and I went down there specifically because they had this machine. They had the Snap-on and they had the Hunter there, along with a few other wheel alignment machines. And the reason why I picked this particular alignment machine over the Hunter, because the two of those are kind of neck and neck for the best machines out there. Personally, I like the Snap-on better because, first off, it's a lot easier to use. Definitely more user-friendly. The car itself, with the towers, as we're doing the alignment, if we have to make adjustments and lift the car up in the air more or bring it down, the machine will follow us whatever height we want to do the alignment on, it'll be fine. John Beam, it's a V3400. I'm going to let Jay do most of the work setting it up.
Hi, I'm Jay from Barry's Auto Body. The first thing that we do is we make sure the air in the tires are correct. And the way you do that is go into the door jamb over here. There's a sticker right here that'll tell you exactly what the air pressure is. This one is 35 pounds. So we're going to check all four tires, make sure there's 35 pounds in it before we do anything. All right, now we're going to check the air pressure. The whole reason why we're checking the air pressure is if the air pressure is off, the alignment's going to be off. And it's also a safety issue if the air pressure is off. So let's do this real quick. All right, this is a little off. All right, here we go, 35. On to the next one. Now that we have our air pressure set, we're going to move on to a visual inspection of the tires, make sure the tires are wearing evenly. Make sure there's no chunks missing or anything like that. Tire wear looks good on this tire.
All right, so now Jay's gonna lift the car up a little bit more. This way we can check the ball joints and the bushings on the car. So Jay, you please lift up the car a little more. One thing I just want to point out, a couple of things that he was looking for on the tires is basically you want to check the outside of the tire just to make sure there's no bubbles. You got to check each one because if you're driving on the highway and your car has a bubble, it's bad enough to have a flap because you are checking for any nails in the tires or things like that also. But the bubbles are very important because a flat, normally, I'm not gonna say always, it can blow out, but the odds are on a flat, usually the tire will go down a little slower, whereas a bubble will just pop. So if you have a bubble on the side of your tires, which really anybody should check your tires maybe once every couple of weeks or once a month, you should be looking because a lot of times the air pressure will be fine in the tire, but you'll have a bubble on the side, and then if you're on the highway, that tire, you can have a blowout on the middle of the highway doing 60 or 70 miles an hour, sometimes more, depending on where you're driving. Also, what he was speaking about was just to make sure the beads on the outside of the tire, that everything was correct. It's a safety issue, and it's also the alignment issue because if a tire is oblonged or if something's wrong with the tire, you could do the alignment, get the suspension 100% perfect. The car's still going to drive crooked because the tires are wrong. You know, even if the tires, if when we're looking, we're also looking for uneven wear on the tires. If maybe this is worn down more than the middle, or if the inside, which is more common, if the inside is worn down more than the outside, which means that the tire is kind of shifting a little bit, that's normally a sign that you have a suspension issue and that there's something wrong with a ball joint, a bushing, or one of your arms are bent or something's bent under there. So you want to check for all of that because it's a safety issue, and it's also because the alignment is not going to go, even if the alignment is done, the car is still going to have issues tracking, or when you make a turn, it may slip a little bit. There's a couple issues that will come up. All right, so Jay's going to continue to lift the car up. Can you just lift it up a little higher, Jay, please? When we go under the car, also, when you're doing an alignment, you're under the car anyway, it's always a good idea to check for any leaks. If you see any kind of fluids on the floor, I mean, obviously it's something you want to look into a little bit further. One of the things I'm noticing on the inside of this wheel that has to be checked out, you see any marks or any bends, which is kind of normal on the inside of the wheels from hitting potholes or anything like that. If you see a bent wheel on the inside, it's something that has to be addressed, whether most of the time you may need a wheel. Every situation really is different. But Jay's gonna come underneath and we're gonna check for the bushings have to be checked, and most importantly, the ball joints have to be checked, because if a ball joint is damaged, and say it had, sometimes you'll get in the ball joint just a little pinhole in there where oil is leaking out of it, and maybe it's not a problem right now, but if you have something like that a couple weeks or a couple months or a couple hours down the road, you could end up having a problem where the ball joint runs out of grease inside, and then the wheel ends up snapping off, and you know it's dangerous. You're doing 60, 70 on a highway, and you have your wheel ends up falling off the car. You're gonna have a lot of problems. So Jay's gonna get under and let him do all the checks. All right, so now Jay's gonna go over, we're gonna lift the car off of the alignment rack, and what he's gonna do now we wanna check the wheels. This is another check on the ball joints, maybe even the more important check. You wanna make sure the ball joints and that the tie rod, the ball joints on the tie rods also, because you do have, every car is different, but the majority would have a ball joint under the lower control arm or the knuckle, depending on how the car sits. And then you would have also on the tie rod would have its own ball joint. Sometimes you may have another ball joint on the inside of the tie rod or at different parts of the knuckle. There may be, depending on the car, some of the BMWs or more finely tuned suspension, some of the Nissans, it will have a few more ball joints. So Jay's going to go over and we're going to start that check now. And ball joints are one of the most important things that you check when you're doing a wheel alignment, because that's where the wheel actually will fall off of the car if you do have a problem with a ball joint. Right now you can see that underneath the tire is totally clear. This way you do have clearance to move the wheel from side to side.
Now we're gonna check for play. You don't gotta move it a lot, just a little bit. If you feel a little clicking, that means the ball joints are no good. Check this way. This one, the ball joints are fine. You're gonna come over to this side. Do the same thing. This one, the ball joints are fine. We're going to come under here. We're going to tug on the control arms. Make sure you don't feel no clicking or anything. Both of these are fine. Last but not least, you want to go on the stabilizer link, tug on that, make sure those are good. And everything seems fine to start our alignment.
All right, so now that we know the car is an SE, we're gonna look over here. So it's an SE and there's two different options. You have the SE with 17-inch wheels, and we have a Toyota Camry, all 2.5 liters, the VIN picked that up. But this is an SE 18-inch wheels, so we're gonna check the wheels really quick.
And right here, you see, it's a 45R18.
So it's basically an 18-inch wheel. The R stands for radial. So it's a radial 18, it's an 18-inch wheel. So before we pick the car though, one thing we are gonna do, we have to turn on our targets. So I'm gonna first turn on the first target. We're gonna turn on the second target, and what this is basically a laser that this front, which we always have to make sure that this is clean, otherwise the inside of this does have to see each one of the targets. But this is a laser that will move up and down in order to find the target. So me and Jay, we're gonna set up the 4 targets. It's basically a target goes on each wheel. So this is another one of the reasons, and the way that we put the targets away actually make a difference, because each one of these targets, they're specific for which wheel it goes to. So we have 2 targets on this side, which we know that the top one is for the front wheel, the bottom one is for the back wheel. Then we have 2 more targets on the wall over there, and we know that the front one is for the front wheel and the back one is for the back wheel. So each target has to be specifically put on each wheel. And we have to put the targets on quick, because these things will actually, like the Terminator, these will just keep going up and down. Right now they're actually looking for the targets because the target's not on there yet. Well, what I'm going to do, we're going to loosen the target so that it fits on the 18-inch wheel. Now, this was another reason besides the snap-on machine being a lot more user-friendly and easier to use than the Hunter was. This was another one of the reasons why I went with this machine opposed to the Hunter, was because this particular target, the Hunter, when we bought this alignment machine, that actually has to mount to the wheel, which is a little bit of an issue, especially when we're in a body shop. Sometimes we have wheels that, sometimes people ask us to paint their wheels or something like that, and you have fresh paint on it. I can't put targets on wheels because then it scratches the wheel sometimes. So this is another reason. These particular targets on this machine, they go onto the tires, and they also, if the tire has, as it's doing this, it's not just checking the wheel, it's also checking the tire. If the tire had like a belt shifted, or if it was oblonged or rounded, or some kind of deformity in the tire, this will actually pick it up. It will let you continue to do the alignment, but it will pick it up also to let you know that the tire is a little bit off. All right, so we have this front one. Now this one is for the back. Jay's already put the other two on those tires. So we're going to put them on, and it has a gear in it, so you can't really over tighten it. You can't under tighten it though. You have to make sure you hear that snap. So you know, as soon as you hear that snap, we know it's on there good, it's on there nice and strong. And you know, basically, you have to make sure, one of the important things is that when you put the alignment, you see it many times where people will put it on, but it's like this. Right now I'm being a little over dramatic, but even if you're a little bit off, but say your target is like this, you could still snap it on there. But now I can get my finger in here. Whatever alignment I get out of this is not going to be right. So now I'm going to think that the car is totally off, and it's just something as simple as me not putting the target all the way up flush mounted to the tire. So that's very important. Now when you snap it, you have to first kind of push it in to make sure that it's 100% against the tire, and then you wait for the click. And it's that simple. And Jay set up this side already, so both of these tires are all hooked up. They're on there correctly. Now Jay is going to enter. I'll let Jay pick up from here.
All right, now we're going to enter the vehicle into the computer, which is SE 18-inch wheels. All right, we're going to start our rollback now.
And what's nice about this machine, you see how it beeps each time when we're ready for the next operation. It's pretty nice that it does that. So right now it's actually, this is when the machine is getting to know the tires to see if the tires are good or if there's an issue with it. You ready for the rollback, Jay?
Yeah.
Tell me when. All right, now we're going to go back, telling us we're in the green. We're going to roll forward. We're going to go back again. So now the car, it's done the rollback, so basically the laser is getting to know the tires, and by the targets rolling forward and backward, it can actually tell if the tires are good enough to do the alignment and where they are. One thing I'd like to also point out while he's setting up the next step, we also have, which is nice, I had my computer guy actually come in and he wired another screen here. This way when my guys are doing the alignment, they don't have just one screen to look at. You have the one screen which would be in the front of the car, but you have this all the way up in the air. This way when we're on the driver's side of the car and they have to look across the car, this one's all the way up in the air and they can see it from two different screens. This way anywhere that you are on the car, and even when we're under the car and we're making adjustments, I had them wire that up. This way you could see where the alignment is really at any point around the car or underneath the car, we're able to see it. All right, so Jay's going to show you the next step.
Yeah, at this point, We're gonna put the brake pedal depressor on and unlock the machine. First things first, we take these out. And now I gotta turn the wheel until it hits the points. It's very important. We gotta position our steering wheel now. Yeah, if the steering wheel's not straight, your alignment's not gonna be straight.
One thing I'd like to touch on, what Jay just mentioned, the steering wheel, which we see a lot of issues at a lot of different alignment shops when they do it. They end up, you ever notice, I don't know if you've ever had the experience, bad experience, of getting your car out of an alignment shop and all of a sudden you're driving down, the car's driving straight, but the wheel's kind of off-centered a little bit. That's why this part is so important. You have to make sure that the steering wheel is straight, because if they do the alignment, the car will let you do an alignment with a steering wheel like this. So now the car is going to drive straight when the steering wheel is like this. So you have to make sure that the steering wheel is pinned straight. Otherwise, it's going to drive straight when the wheel is crooked.
All right, now we see our camber's a little off. And when you're doing alignment, the first thing you do is you do the rear. If you can't get the rear, you can't get the front, so you have to do the rear first. And as you can see, everything is good on the rear. The rear is good. So now I'm going to move on to the front. We've already done that. Now, you see I'm a little off. My center line is good. Everything is good except my camber.
The easiest way for me to explain the alignment, you have the different measurements. This is for the front. So it's the front caster, front camber, front toe. Now, really quick, I'm going to explain. The caster is going to be the wheel. The easiest way for me to explain it is with my hand this way. You have the wheel from front to back. So the caster, a positive and negative caster, is basically the difference is the wheel being like this or if the wheel is like this. So which most of the time you'll notice it from the wheel being too far forward or from the wheel being too far back. Normally what that would be when the wheel is that way would be either it's possible that it could be a knuckle. It's more than likely that it could be a lower control arm, it could be a bent subframe, or it could be an upper control arm also. Would be from that measurement. Then you have the other measurement on there, which is the camber. Now, camber is when the wheel is either this way or if the wheel is that way. So when you have a positive or a negative camber, it's going to be because the wheel is that way or it's that way, which normally would be a strut, could be a knuckle. If there is an upper control arm, it could be that the upper control arm is in also. And then the third measurement you have is the toe. So the toe, more than likely, is normally going to be a tie rod. Whether it's the inner tie rod, the outer tie rod, could be a rack and pinion. But what that basically means is that the car, if the wheel was in or if it was that way. So if the tire was like that or like that, that would be the toe. Now, as we were showing before, these are those measurements. This is also, this middle measurement here is a thrust angle. Most of the times we don't focus on that too much. We do the other measurements first, and normally that will work itself out. If it doesn't work itself out, then we start looking at a subframe or we start looking at other parts. But most of the time, if everything is good, that's going to work itself out. You can see on this particular car, this is all the front axle. All these measurements you see here, this is not front and rear, this is just the front of the car. This is showing all the different measurements. So we could see on this car, just this one wheel, which happens to be the right front wheel, and you can see this one measurement is off. And what's nice about this machine, it actually gives you little pictures of where the measurement's off. This is showing us that the camber is off. And you can kind of see a picture in there with the arrow showing that the wheel is either this way or that way. All right, so now we're gonna go underneath the car. Jay's gonna start making a couple adjustments just to get the alignment straight. Yeah, so you'll have certain adjustments on the control arms will have adjustments most of the time, and then also the tie rods themselves, they'll have adjustments to bring the tie rod in, to bring the tie rod out, just to change the measurements on it. So now we're just gonna go around, we're gonna take all the targets off. We're also gonna take that part that went on the steering column that kept the wheel centered. So let's go around, we'll pull all the targets off. Come off very easy. So we make sure when we put the targets in, we have to put them in the exact spot that they were, because each target is different. And this is the printout just showing that the final printout, everything was in the green. And this is after all the adjustments were done. You also get the specifications that it shows the minimum and the maximum, and it has to be, each specification will be different. The computer, by getting the VIN number, will set, the factory has the specifications on where the alignment should be, and you have to be as close to the middle as possible within that alignment. So, that's basically the alignment on this car. Again, I'm Barry from Barry's Auto Body.
I'm Jay.
So, want to say thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment if you want to see any other videos in there, because we do like to hear from you. Thank you very much.